Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Best English Podcast. I am Sophia, and I am just so incredibly thrilled, so truly excited to be here with you today, to share a conversation that, for many of you, is at the very heart of your English learning journey. It's about finding your voice, really. You know, when we're learning a new language, especially English, we often get caught up in big, fancy words or complex grammar rules, don't we? We study long lists of vocabulary about science or business, and we try to understand complicated political discussions. And while all that is super important for building a strong base, sometimes we miss the most important part of talking in real life. That's right, I'm talking about simply chatting about your daily life. It sounds so basic, doesn't it? But think about it. What do you talk about most with your friends, your family, your colleagues? It's usually about your day, isn't it? What happened this morning, what you're doing later, what you ate for lunch. These are the small, everyday moments that make up our lives. And being able to talk about them in English is truly where your language skills come alive. I remember when I first started learning another language. I was so focused on memorizing textbooks. I could tell you about historical events or scientific theories, but if someone asked me, "So what did you do after work yesterday?" I'd freeze. My mind would go blank. I'd have all the individual words for cook or dinner, watch TV, but putting them together smoothly with the right flow and natural expressions felt impossible. It was like I had a giant dictionary in my head, but no idea how to put the words into sentences that sounded like real conversation. That's when it hit me. If I couldn't talk about my daily life, I couldn't truly connect with people. And connecting, building relationships, sharing laughs, that's what language is really for, isn't it? It's not just about passing tests or understanding news articles. It's about sharing who you are, what you do, and how you feel every single day. So, today, we're going on a grand tour of your typical day, from the moment your alarm rings until you finally drift off to sleep. We're going to break down all those little moments, share the words and phrases you need, and, most importantly, dive into some real-life stories that show just how powerful and practical talking about daily life can be. We'll look at how to describe your morning routine, your commute, your work or study day, your evenings, and your weekends. We'll also touch on how to express your feelings and opinions about these everyday things, and even how to ask questions to keep those daily conversations flowing. This is going to be incredibly helpful for your B1 English listening practice, giving you a rich, human-like experience. Every moment of your day is a chance to practice. And by the end of this episode, you'll feel much more ready to take those chances. So, grab a cup of tea, get comfy, and let's get started on unlocking the language of your daily life. Let's kick things off with the start of your day. That very first moment when you begin to wake up and get ready. For most of us, the morning sets the tone for everything that follows, right? And being able to talk about it is a fundamental part of daily conversation. It might seem simple, but mastering these early morning phrases can really build your confidence. Think about it. How do you usually wake up? Do you wake up naturally with the sun? Or are you like me and depend on an alarm clock? You might say, "My alarm usually goes off at 6 a.m., but I sometimes hit the snooze button a few times before I actually get up." Or maybe you're a morning person and you just spring out of bed as soon as you open your eyes. Once you're out of bed, what's the first thing you do? Do you stretch a little to wake up your body, Or do you immediately grab your phone to check messages or the news? Some people like to make their bed right away, while others leave it for later. These are all simple actions, but using the right verbs and phrases makes a big difference. Then comes breakfast, the most important meal of the day, as they say. Do you have breakfast at home, or do you grab a coffee and a pastry on your way to work? You could say, I usually make myself some toast and have a cup of tea for breakfast. Or perhaps, I'm not much of a breakfast person, so I just grab a banana on the go. Maybe you're into cooking and you whip up some scrambled eggs or even something more elaborate. These little details about your food choices, whether you prefer coffee or tea, or if you like sweet or savory breakfasts, are excellent starting points for conversation. After breakfast, it's all about getting ready. This usually involves heading to the bathroom. You might say, first, I take a shower to wake myself up properly. Or, I prefer to take a bath in the evenings, so in the morning, I just wash my face. Then you brush your teeth, maybe comb your hair, or if you're like some people, you might do your hair in a specific style. Choosing your clothes is also part of this routine. I usually pick out my outfit the night before, so I don't have to think about it in the morning. Or, I just throw on some clothes that are comfy. These are all simple, everyday actions, but describing them in English lets you share a lot about your personal habits and preferences. Let me tell you about Akari, a wonderfully cheerful woman from Japan who is studying English in London. Akari absolutely hated mornings. She was not a morning person at all, and getting out of bed felt like a huge battle every day. She'd always hit the snooze button at least 3 times. She used to joke, "My alarm clock is my worst enemy." When she started attending her English classes, she found it hard to talk about her mornings because she just wanted to forget them. But then, her teacher suggested a fun little exercise. Find an English podcast or a song you love and try to make it part of your morning. Akari chose a really silly, upbeat English pop song. She decided that every time her alarm went off, instead of hitting snooze, she would immediately put on that song. As she listened, she would try to describe her actions out loud, even if it was just to herself. So, her alarm would go off, and she'd groan, "Ugh, it's so early." Then she'd put on her song and force herself to say, "Okay, Akari, time to get up." As she swung her legs out of bed, she'd say, "My feet are touching the cold floor. Brr!" While she stretched, she'd murmur, "Time to stretch my arms and my legs." She'd go to the kitchen and say, "I'm going to make some tea now. I need a big cup of tea to wake up." She'd describe pouring the water, putting in the tea bag, and waiting for it to steep. This simple act of narrating her morning, even if it was just a few broken sentences at first, started to change how she felt about mornings and about her English. It was no longer a boring chore. It became her own personal musical English practice session. By the end of her course, she could talk about her morning routine with a smile, even describing how she'd sometimes sing along off-key while making her tea. She learned that even the most hated parts of your day can become fun chances to practice English. Then there was Marco, a shy but very polite young man from Italy. He loved his morning routine, but felt a bit nervous about speaking English in public. He often stopped at a small coffee shop near his English language school to grab a quick coffee before class. He knew how to order, "Can I have a latte, please?" But that was it. He wanted to make a bit of small talk, to truly engage. But his mind would just go blank after the order. One morning, he noticed the barista, a friendly woman named Sarah was wearing a t-shirt with a picture of a cat playing a guitar. Marco loved cats, and he thought the shirt was really funny. He hesitated for a moment, his heart pounding a little. And then, as Sarah handed him his coffee, he managed to say, "I really like your shirt. The cat, it plays guitar?" It wasn't perfect English, but he got the message across. Sarah smiled warmly. "Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's my favorite. My cat actually tries to play my guitar sometimes." Marco laughed, and then he said, "Your cat plays guitar? That's amazing." From that day on, Marco had a little goal. Every morning, he'd try to add one small, simple comment or question beyond just his order. Sometimes it was about the weather. "It's quite chilly this morning, isn't it?" Other times, it was about a new pastry in the display. "That croissant looks delicious. Is it new?" These small, consistent interactions slowly chipped away at his shyness. He learned that even a tiny bit of effort can open up a connection. And the baristas, used to quick orders, seemed to appreciate the little bits of conversation. Making his coffee runs a little brighter each day. He learned that talking about simple things like a funny t-shirt or the weather can make a huge difference in building confidence and comfort in daily English interactions. It's all about taking those tiny, brave steps. After getting ready, for many of us, the next big part of the day is commuting and travel, which is simply about getting from one place to another, whether you're heading to work, school, or just running errands. This part of the day offers so many chances to talk about your routine. How do you usually travel? Do you take the bus, ride the train, or drive your car? Maybe you cycle to work or even walk to school. Each of these ways of getting around has its own set of words and phrases. When you're talking about your commute, you might describe the traffic. Is it heavy traffic or is it a smooth ride? Do you often get stuck in a traffic jam? You could say, "My commute is usually pretty long. I take the subway, and it's always packed during rush hour." Or, "I'm lucky. I only live a short walk from my office, so I don't have to deal with traffic at all." Sometimes there are delays on public transport, or maybe your car breaks down, which always makes for an interesting story, doesn't it? What do people do during their commute? Do you listen to music or a podcast? Maybe even the best English podcast, I hope? Do you read a book or scroll through social media on your phone? Or are you someone who just looks out the window and observes the city waking up? These little details add so much flavor to your description of daily life. You might say, "Oh, I usually catch up on my emails on the bus." Or, "I love to listen to audiobooks during my drive." These are all simple ways to expand your conversation about getting from A to B. Let me tell you about Leo, a student from Brazil who was living in Dublin, Ireland. Leo was a friendly guy, but he found it really hard to start conversations with strangers, especially on his bus commute to university. He saw the same people every day at his bus stop, and he often wondered if he should say something, but shyness always held him back. His English was good, but that first step felt like climbing a mountain. One chilly morning, it started to rain heavily, just as the bus was about to arrive. Everyone at the bus stop huddled together under the small shelter, trying to stay dry. Leo noticed an older lady next to him, struggling to open her umbrella. Without thinking too much, he said, "Oh, it's really pouring down, isn't it? Here, let me help you with that." He helped her open her umbrella, and she smiled gratefully. "Oh, thank you, dear. It really came down out of nowhere, didn't it?" she said. That simple act of kindness broke the ice. From that day on, Leo and the lady, whose name was Mrs. O'Malley, would exchange a few words every morning at the bus stop. It started with simple comments about the weather. Lovely day today, isn't it? Or, looks like it might clear up later. Then it moved to bus delays. Bus is running a bit late today, I think. Or typical, isn't it? Sometimes Mrs. O'Malley would even offer him a biscuit. These small, consistent interactions over weeks built up his confidence in a truly natural way. He learned to listen to her Irish accent and respond quickly without overthinking. He didn't just learn English phrases, he learned the warmth of everyday conversation, making his daily commute a little brighter and much more enriching. He realized that sometimes the best way to start talking is to simply be helpful or notice something small in your shared surroundings. Then there's the story of Javier, a Spanish tourist who was backpacking through the United States. Javier was feeling pretty confident about his English after a few weeks of travel, but he hadn't really faced a true challenge yet. One afternoon, he was driving his rental car through a quiet countryside area, relying on his phone's GPS. Suddenly, his phone died. No charger, no map. And he was completely lost. He drove for another 15 minutes, feeling a knot of panic tighten in his stomach. He hadn't seen another car in ages, and the road signs were few and far between. Finally, he spotted a small gas station in the distance. He pulled in, took a deep breath, and walked inside. A friendly-looking man was behind the counter. Javier started, "Excuse me, my phone, it is dead, and I am lost. Can you help me find the way to Springfield?" The man smiled kindly. "Springfield, huh? There are quite a few of those. Which Springfield are you trying to get to?" Javier realized his mistake. He hadn't specified which Springfield. He felt his face flush a little. "Oh, the one with the big university?" The man nodded. Springfield, Illinois. No problem. You're actually quite a ways off course. You need to head back the way you came for about 5 miles. Then take a left at the old mill. After that, you'll follow that road for about 10 miles until you hit a highway. And then you just follow the signs from there. Can't miss it. Javier listened carefully, trying to remember every direction. He pulled out a piece of paper and a pen. Can you say that again, please? And slowly?" The man patiently repeated the directions, drawing a little map for Javier. Javier thanked him profusely, feeling a huge sense of relief mixed with a bit of embarrassment. He drove away, repeating the directions to himself in English. "Head back, 5 miles, left at the old mill, 10 miles, hit the highway." This experience, though stressful, was a massive learning moment for him. He not only learned a lot of new phrases for directions like head back, take a left, follow the road, and hit a highway, but he also gained confidence in asking for help and admitting when he didn't understand. He learned that even when you're lost, communicating in English can guide you back on track, and that most people are more than willing to lend a hand. It was a true test of his English, and he came out stronger, even if a little disoriented at first. Moving beyond the commute, we now dive into the core of many people's days: work and study life. This is where we spend a big chunk of our waking hours. And being able to talk about our tasks, interactions, and challenges in English is absolutely essential for professional and academic success. And just for feeling like you belong. Let's think about your typical work tasks. Do you start your day by checking emails? Do you have a lot of meetings? Maybe you spend your time writing reports, making phone calls, or working on projects. You could describe your main responsibilities. "I handle customer inquiries," or I'm responsible for managing the team's schedule. Perhaps you're a student and your day involves attending lectures, taking notes, doing homework, or working on a research paper. You might talk about deadlines you have to meet or presentations you need to give. These are all common terms, and using them helps paint a clear picture of your day. Then there are the people you interact with. How do you talk about your colleagues or classmates? Do you get along well with your boss or your professor? You might say, "My team is really supportive," or "I often collaborate with my colleagues on different tasks." Small talk around the office water cooler or during a study break is also part of this. Asking, "How's your day going?" or "Did you have a busy morning?" can open up a lot of conversational doors. Let's talk about some challenges you might face and how to describe them. Maybe you have a heavy workload, or you're feeling a bit stressed about an exam, or perhaps you're struggling with a particular subject. It's important to be able to express these feelings. On the flip side, you should also be able to talk about your achievements. Did you finish a big project? Did you pass an important test? Or did you simply have a productive day? Celebrating these small victories in English is great practice. Lunch breaks are also a big part of the work or study day. What do you usually do? Do you eat lunch at your desk, go out for a bite with colleagues, or bring your own packed lunch? You might describe what you eat. I usually have a sandwich and a salad for lunch. Or, today, I'm trying that new restaurant down the street. These simple details offer easy points for conversation. Now, let me share the story of Anya, a bright young marketing specialist from Ukraine who had recently joined an international company in Berlin. Anya's written English was excellent, but she really struggled with speaking in meetings. She'd sit there, her mind buzzing with ideas and opinions, but when it was her turn to speak, her voice would get small, her heart would race, and the words would simply vanish. She felt like she was invisible, even though she had so much to contribute. Her biggest fear was sounding silly or making a grammar mistake in front of her English-speaking colleagues and her demanding boss. Anya knew she had to change this. Her manager announced a big brainstorming meeting for a new product launch, and he specifically asked everyone to come prepared to share their ideas. Anya saw this as her moment. She decided she would not just listen, she would speak. She identified 3 key ideas she wanted to share. For each idea, she wrote down a few short, clear sentences. She practiced them over and over again to herself. Not just the words, but also how she would say them, the rhythm, the tone. She rehearsed phrases like, "I think we should consider," "My suggestion is to," and "From my perspective." She even practiced polite ways to interrupt or add to someone else's point. "That's a great point, and I'd like to add," or "If I may just jump in for a second." On the day of the meeting, Anya was incredibly nervous. Her palms were sweaty. When her manager opened the floor for ideas, she took a deep breath. She waited for a small pause, then, with a voice that trembled only slightly, she said, "If I may just jump in for a second, I think we should consider a social media campaign that focuses on user-generated content." The room went quiet for a moment, and then her manager nodded. "That's an interesting idea, Anya. Could you explain more about that?" She felt a rush of adrenaline. She continued, explaining her idea using the sentences she had practiced. She wasn't perfect. She stumbled over a word or two, and her voice wavered. But she spoke, and her idea was heard. By the end of the meeting, she had contributed 3 times, and one of her ideas was actually chosen for further work. The feeling of accomplishment was immense. It taught her that preparation, even just a few key phrases, and the courage to take that first step can truly break the ice and make your voice heard in a professional English setting. It was a huge win for her confidence, proving that even a small contribution can have a big impact. Let's also think about the world of study, which often comes with its own set of challenges. Carlos, a bright engineering student from Colombia, was doing his master's degree in Canada. He found it easy to understand his professors and read textbooks, but participating in study groups felt like a nightmare. His classmates, a mix of Canadians, Indians, and Chinese students, would discuss complex engineering problems at lightning speed. Carlos would understand the words, but by the time he formed a question in his head or thought of a point to make, the conversation had moved on, leaving him feeling frustrated and behind. He'd often think, "I know the answer, I have a question," but it's too late. One evening, after a particularly silent study session, Carlos opened up to one of his Canadian classmates, Sarah. "I feel so slow," he admitted. "My brain is just processing too slowly. I understand, but I cannot jump in." Sarah, being very kind, suggested a strategy. When you're listening, instead of trying to form a whole perfect sentence, just focus on one key phrase or question you want to say. She advised, even if it's just, "Can you clarify?" or "What about?" or "So, you mean?" Just get those words out, and then you can build on it. And Carlos started practicing this. In the next study group, he consciously looked for small openings. When someone explained a difficult concept, he quickly jumped in with, "So, you mean we should consider the stress points here?" Or, "Can you clarify the exact formula you used?" He wasn't always perfect, and sometimes he'd still hesitate, but he was trying. He also started preparing 1 or 2 questions before each study session, even if he already knew the answers, just to get his mouth moving. He found that by getting that first short phrase out, it was easier to follow up with a longer explanation. Over the semester, his confidence grew leaps and bounds. He was no longer just a listener, he was an active participant, contributing his ideas and asking insightful questions. He learned that breaking down his contribution into smaller, manageable phrases helped him overcome his processing delay and made him a much more valuable part of his study group. It showed him that sometimes the simplest strategies can yield the biggest results, and sometimes our daily work life can bring us little moments of embarrassment, but also big lessons. There was Layla, a young designer from France working for an international fashion brand. She was usually super careful with her English, especially in writing. But one very hectic afternoon, she was rushing to send an email to a client about a design change. She meant to write, "Please review the attached mock-up." But in her haste, she accidentally typed, "Please revile the attached mock-up." Now, revile means to criticize harshly or insult. It was a terrible typo. She clicked send without checking, and only a few minutes later, rereading her sent emails, did her heart sink. "Oh no! What have I done?" she thought, her face going red. She immediately called her colleague, Mark, who was a native English speaker. "Mark, I've made a terrible mistake. I told the client to revile the design, not review it. What do I do?" Mark chuckled, but then quickly said, "Don't worry, it happens. Just send a quick follow-up email. Be honest, explain it was a typo, and apologize." Layla took a deep breath and quickly wrote another email. "Dear Mr. Smith," she wrote, "my sincere apologies for the typo in my previous email. I meant to say, Please review the attached mock-up for your feedback, not revile. My apologies for the confusion." She felt so embarrassed sending it, but within minutes, Mr. Smith replied with a laughing face and, "No worries, Layla. Happens to the best of us. Thanks for clarifying. I'll review it now." Layla learned a huge lesson that day. Even in professional English, people understand that mistakes happen. It's how you handle them, quickly, honestly, and with a polite apology, that truly matters. It also drilled into her brain the crucial difference between review and revile in a way no grammar book ever could. Her little "oops" email became a funny story she could tell later, and it made her feel more human and less afraid of future small slip-ups. As the work or study day wraps up, our minds often turn to downtime and leisure. Those precious hours in the afternoon and evening where we get to relax, pursue our hobbies, and spend time with loved ones. Being able to talk about these moments in English is key to truly connecting with people on a personal level. It's where most of the casual, fun conversations happen. What do you usually do after finishing work or studies? Do you head straight to the gym to work out? Maybe you like to go for a walk or a run to clear your head. Or perhaps you just want to kick back and relax at home. You might say, "After work, I usually hit the gym for an hour to burn off some steam," which is a great informal phrase for releasing stress. Or, "I love to just chill out on the couch and watch some TV." These expressions are super common and make your English sound really natural. Talking about your favorite entertainment is always a great topic. What kind of TV shows are you hooked on right now? Are there any movies you've seen recently that you'd highly recommend? Do you prefer comedies, dramas, thrillers, or documentaries? You might say, "I'm currently binge-watching a new fantasy series on Netflix. It's really captivating." Or, "I'm not much of a TV person. I prefer to read a good book before bed." What about music? What kind of music are you into? Do you have a favorite band or artist? Then, of course, comes dinner. Do you cook dinner at home? What kind of dishes do you make? Do you enjoy trying new recipes? You could say, "I usually cook a simple meal for dinner, something quick like pasta or a stir-fry." Or maybe you often eat out at restaurants. "I love trying new places. There's a great Thai restaurant near my apartment." Describing the food, its flavors like spicy, sweet, savory, tangy, or bitter can make your conversation more vivid. Who do you usually have dinner with? Your family, your flatmates? Or do you sometimes eat alone? Spending time with family and friends is another big part of downtime. What activities do you do together? Do you play board games, have movie nights, or just chat over a cup of tea? You might say, "We often have friends over for dinner on the weekends." Or, "My family and I like to go for walks in the park after dinner." These everyday interactions are where so much natural English conversation happens. Finally, the bedtime routine. Do you like to read a book? Do you scroll through social media? Or do you just drift off to sleep as soon as your head hits the pillow? I usually read for about an hour before I turn out the lights. Or I sometimes listen to a relaxing podcast to help me fall asleep. These are all simple ways to describe the end of your day. Let me share the story of Sophia, a lively student from Spain living in London. Sophia loved cooking, but she usually stuck to Spanish recipes. One evening, her flatmate, an English girl named Emma, suggested they try making an English dish together: shepherd's pie. Emma found a recipe online, and Sophia was excited but a little nervous. The recipe was, of course, entirely in English. As they started, Sophia realized she didn't know many of the specific cooking verbs. "What does sauté mean?" she asked. "And what's a knob of butter?" Emma patiently explained. "Sauté means to cook quickly in a little fat, and a knob of butter is just a small, undefined amount, like a little lump." Sophia laughed. They went through the recipe step by step. "So, I need to chop the onions, right?" Sophia asked, holding up a knife. "Yes, then mince the garlic." Emma replied. They met words like simmer or mash, season, and gratin. Each new verb was a mini lesson. At one point, Sophia completely messed up the amount of salt, adding way too much. "Oh no, I've oversalted it," she exclaimed, tasting the mixture. Emma tasted it too and made a funny face. "Yeah, that's a bit on the salty side." She agreed. "Never mind, we can add some water to make it less salty." Despite the little mishaps and the salty surprise, they had a blast. The kitchen was filled with laughter and English words. The next day, Sophia felt much more confident describing cooking processes. She could tell her friends, "Yesterday, I sautéed onions, minced garlic, and then accidentally oversalted the meat for shepherd's pie. But we fixed it." This experience taught her that learning through doing, especially with something fun like cooking, can be incredibly effective. And even mistakes can lead to memorable learning moments. Then there was Kenji, a quiet young man from Japan who worked long hours in a busy office. When he got home, all he wanted to do was crash on the sofa and watch TV. He felt his English wasn't getting any better because he didn't have much energy for formal study. One day, he realized he was spending hours watching American sitcoms with Japanese words on the screen. He thought, "Why don't I try watching this with English words on the screen instead?" It was hard at first. He had to pause a lot, look up words, and rewind parts. But he was watching shows he genuinely enjoyed, so it didn't feel like studying. After a few weeks, he started to notice something amazing. He was picking up common phrases and jokes without even trying. He decided to take it a step further. He joined an online fan group for one of his favorite shows. At first, he just read what people wrote, but then he decided to write a short post about his favorite character. "I think Chandler is so funny. His sarcastic comments always make me laugh out loud." He used a phrase he'd heard on the show itself, "laugh out loud." Slowly, he started replying to other people's comments, and soon he was having simple written conversations about the show. This then moved to voice chats with other fans from around the world. He realized that talking about a shared interest, like a TV show, provided a natural, low-pressure way to practice. He wasn't thinking about grammar, he was thinking about the plot, the characters, and the jokes. His habit of watching TV, which he thought was stopping his English, actually became one of his most powerful learning tools, showing him that learning can happen even when you're just relaxing and doing what you love. And finally, consider Lena, a student from Germany who was studying abroad in London. She was quite shy and often felt overwhelmed by casual social invitations. She loved her quiet evenings, but she knew she needed to practice speaking. One Friday, her flatmates invited her to a casual pizza and board game night. Her first thought was to say no, to go back to her room with a book, but she pushed herself. "Okay," she thought, "I'll go for an hour, just 1 hour." When she arrived, people were already chatting and laughing. She felt that familiar knot of worry. Her flatmate introduced her. This is Lena from Germany. She's great at strategy games." Someone immediately asked, "Oh, what kind of games are you into?" Lena took a deep breath. I I like strategy games, like chess, or sometimes Settlers of Catan. It wasn't a long answer, but it was a start. The conversation then naturally moved to other board games, then to favorite movies, and then to travel. She listened carefully, picking up words and phrases, and when she felt a comfortable moment, she would add a short comment or ask a question. She learned a phrase, "I'm not familiar with that one." When someone mentioned a game she didn't know, she also learned how to use polite words like, "Oh, really?" or "That's interesting," to show she was listening. By the end of the night, she had stayed for over 3 hours. She had laughed, learned a new board game, and had several small conversations. She even found herself telling a short, funny story about a bad travel experience. When she went back to her room, she felt tired but very happy. She realized that by showing up, even when she felt nervous, and by doing a shared activity, the English flowed more naturally than she expected. It was a great lesson in pushing past social shyness and letting shared interests pave the way for real conversations, proving that sometimes the best way to practice is to simply show up and be open to connection. Now, let's look at the part of the week that many of us live for: weekend activities. Weekends are a perfect topic for conversation because they're all about personal choices, plans, and experiences. Being able to chat about what you do in your free time, what you plan to do, or what you did last weekend is a cornerstone of natural English conversation. How do you usually plan for your weekend? Do you make plans in advance? Or are you more of a spontaneous person who just sees what happens? You might say, "I usually like to have my weekends planned out," or "I prefer to play it by ear on the weekends," which means you decide as you go along. What kind of things do you usually do? Do you sleep in and have a lie-in to catch up on rest? Or are you an early riser, even on weekends? When talking about shopping, which many of us do on the weekend, what kind of places do you go? Do you go to the supermarket for groceries? Or do you prefer to browse around a local market? Maybe you go window shopping at the mall, or you're looking for something specific. You might ask, "Do you know where I can find the dairy section?" Or, "How much does this cost?" Knowing how to talk about shopping, asking for prices, or asking for help is super practical. What about sports or outdoor activities? Do you play a sport like football or tennis? Do you go hiking in the mountains or biking along a trail? Perhaps you enjoy more relaxed outdoor activities like having a picnic in the park or strolling along the beach. You could say, "I usually play football with my friends on Saturday mornings." Or, "My family and I love to go for long walks in the countryside on Sundays." Many people also use weekends to catch up with friends and family. Do you visit relatives? Do you have friends over for a meal or a game night? Maybe you go out for dinner or catch a movie with someone special. These are common phrases that will help you describe your social life. Let me tell you about David, a university student from Germany. David was a keen English learner, but he felt like his speaking practice was always a bit too formal, too much like a classroom exercise. He wanted to push himself to use English in a real, living way. So he decided to try a challenge. He would only speak English for an entire weekend, no matter what. He called it his English Immersion Weekend. It started simply enough. On Saturday morning, his flatmate, who was from England, asked, "What are your plans for the weekend?" David took a deep breath and replied, "Well, I'm going to try to only speak English for the whole weekend. It's a bit of a challenge." His flatmate thought it was a brilliant idea and offered to help. David usually spent his Saturdays running errands and meeting friends, which meant a lot of chances to speak. He went to the bakery and ordered his bread, asking, "Is this wholemeal bread freshly baked today?" He struggled a bit when he wanted to ask for directions to a specific bookshop, getting his small words mixed up, but he pushed through, saying, "Excuse me, I'm trying to find my way to the Book Nook. Is it down this street, or do I need to turn right?" He even tried to make small talk with the person at the cash register at the supermarket about the long line. The biggest challenge came on Saturday evening when he went out with a mixed group of friends, some native English speakers, some other international students. The conversation flowed quickly, and sometimes he felt left out. But instead of being quiet, he remembered his challenge. He tried to say at least one sentence every few minutes. He used phrases like, "Oh, that's interesting," or "Tell me more about that," to keep himself involved. He even tried telling a short, simple joke, which wasn't perfectly funny, but it got a few laughs. And that was a victory. By Sunday evening, David was tired, but incredibly proud. He'd made mistakes, stumbled over words, and sometimes felt awkward, but he had kept talking. He realized that real English conversation wasn't about being perfect. It was about trying again and being brave enough to make those mistakes. He found new ways to say things and got a big boost in confidence. His English immersion weekend became a memorable step in his language journey. Let's also talk about Maria, a vibrant artist from Mexico who had recently moved to a small town in rural England. She loved exploring new places and connecting with local culture. And the town had a charming farmers market every Sunday. Maria wanted to buy fresh food and also practice her English with the sellers. But she felt a little nervous about understanding the local accents and how to ask about things. Her biggest fear was not understanding prices or looking silly if she misunderstood something. On her first visit, she went to a stand selling beautiful fresh berries. She pointed at a basket and asked, "How much is this?" The farmer, a friendly older man with a strong local way of speaking, replied quickly. Maria heard 2 pounds but wasn't sure about the rest. She waited, then bravely said, Sorry, can you say that again? A bit slower, please?" The farmer smiled and repeated, "Oh, that's 2 pounds 50 for the punnet, love." "Ah, 2 pounds 50. Oh," Maria repeated, trying to get the sounds right. She then saw some lovely handmade soap and asked, "Are these soaps homemade? And what smell is this one?" The farmer explained, "Yes, they're all made by my daughter. This one's lavender and this is rose." Over the next few weekends, Maria made visiting the market her special English practice time. She learned to ask, "Is this locally grown?" when looking at vegetables. She learned the word bunch for flowers and loaf for bread. She even learned to ask, "Do you take card?" when paying. One day she saw a beautiful handmade wool scarf. She loved it, but felt it was a bit expensive. She remembered hearing people say things about prices. Taking a deep breath, she asked the seller, "Is there a little bit of room for negotiation on this?" The seller chuckled. "Well, for you, my dear, I can take a pound off." Maria was thrilled. She had not only bought a beautiful scarf, but also successfully used a more advanced phrase for asking for a lower price. She realized that real-life situations, like buying things at a market, push you to use English in practical ways, making the learning process natural, exciting, and full of little victories. Her market trips became highlights of her week, not just for the fresh food, but for the fresh conversations she got to have. Beyond simply describing our daily routines, A crucial part of human conversation is expressing feelings and opinions about daily life. This is where your English truly becomes personal and authentic. It allows you to share more than just facts. It lets you share you. Think about how you feel throughout your day. How do you describe it? You might say, I'm feeling a bit tired today, or I'm really happy that it's Friday. Maybe you're stressed out about a deadline, or perhaps you're feeling relaxed after a good workout. Using these simple words that describe feelings and phrases like, I'm feeling, or I feel, is a great start. You can also talk about why you feel that way. I'm feeling a bit tired because I didn't get enough sleep last night. Or, I'm really happy because I finished a big project at work. Saying what you like and dislike about daily routines is also very common. For example, I love my morning coffee ritual. It helps me ease into the day. Or, I can't stand heavy traffic. It really gets on my nerves. You might prefer cooking at home to eating out. Or you might dislike doing chores on the weekends. Using phrases like I love, I enjoy, I prefer, I don't like, I can't stand, or I'm not a fan of will help you voice your personal tastes. Talking about challenges and how you deal with them shows a deeper level of communication. You might say, my biggest challenge today was dealing with a difficult customer. Or, I'm trying to manage my time better so I don't feel so rushed in the mornings. How do you cope? I usually take a break and listen to some music when I feel overwhelmed. Or, I try to break down big tasks into smaller ones to make them easier to handle. These conversations are easy to understand and show your ability to talk about more complex feelings and ways to handle things. You can also give simple opinions on daily news or events. Did something interesting happen in your town today? Did you read a news story that caught your eye? You could say, I think the new park downtown is a great idea, Mud. Or, I don't agree with the decision to raise public transport fares. Use phrases like I think, in my opinion, I believe that, or I don't think. To say what you think politely, let me tell you about Ben, a student from Vietnam who was studying English in Canada. Ben understood a lot of English, but he rarely shared how he truly felt. He'd say, I'm fine, even when he was super stressed. He found it hard to use words for feelings in English beyond basic happy or sad. He knew the words, but connecting them to his own experience felt strange. One particularly cold and gloomy Monday morning, his English teacher asked the class, Ma, how is everyone feeling today and why? Most students gave short answers. When it came to Ben, he paused. Then, encouraged by the teacher's warm smile, he decided to be a little more honest. Well, Ben started, I am feeling a bit grumpy today and also a bit homesick because the weather is so gray and cold and it reminds me of sad days back home. And I missed my bus, so I had to walk in the rain and my feet are freezing. He actually used the word grumpy, a word he'd learned but never used out loud. The class laughed gently and his teacher nodded kindly. Oh, Ben, I hear you. It's definitely a bit miserable out there today. Anyone else feeling that way? Suddenly, other students started sharing their own grumpy or homesick feelings, and a real conversation began. Ben felt a huge sense of relief. He realized that saying his true feelings, even simple negative ones, made him more human and more relatable to others. From then on, he made an effort to use a wider range of feeling words he learned, whether it was being thrilled about a good grade, frustrated with a broken computer, or content after a good meal. He learned that sharing how you really feel isn't just about showing your emotional words. It's about building deeper connections with people. Then there's the story of Maya, a young professional from India working in London. Maya was generally positive, but she had something that really bothered her: noisy neighbors. Her flat was next to a construction site, and the drilling and hammering would start super early every morning. It was really getting on her nerves, but she hadn't really said it clearly in English to her colleagues or friends. One day, during a coffee break, a colleague asked, "How's your new flat, Maya? Settling in okay?" Maya took a deep breath. Instead of just saying, "It's fine," she decided to share her true feelings, but politely. "It's great. Thank you," she began. "But I have to say, the construction next door is driving me crazy. The noise starts at 7 a.m. sharp, and it's quite disruptive. I'm finding it really hard to get a good night's sleep." She used phrases like driving me crazy and disruptive, wow, which she'd heard native speakers use. Her colleague immediately understood. "Oh, I know what you mean," he said. "Construction noise is the worst. You must be tired." They chatted for a few minutes about ways to deal with noise, like using earplugs. Maya felt so much better after saying her frustration. It wasn't about complaining, it was about sharing a common daily problem. She realized that by using specific language to describe her feelings and how the situation affected her, she could connect more deeply with people and even get some helpful advice. It taught her that sharing opinions and feelings, even negative ones, is a vital part of building friendships and trust. In any good conversation about daily life, it's not just about sharing your own stories, it's also about engaging with others. This brings us to the importance of questions and common phrases for daily life conversations. Knowing how to ask questions, how to respond, and how to keep the flow going is crucial for a smooth and enjoyable talk. When someone tells you about their day, how do you show interest and ask for more details? Simple questions are your best friend. For example, if someone says, "I had a busy morning at work," you can follow up with, "Oh, really? What kept you busy?" Or, "Was it a good day?" If they mention a weekend activity, you could ask, "Sounds fun. Who did you go with?" Or, "What was your favorite part of it?" Using phrases like, "Oh, really?" "Sounds interesting." "Tell me more about that." Or, "How was that?" are excellent ways to show you're listening and to encourage the other person to share more. Asking about general updates is also very common. "So, what have you been doing lately?" Or, "How's everything going with you?" These are general openers that invite the other person to talk about whatever is on their mind. If you want to ask about their plans, you can say, "Any exciting plans for the weekend?" Or, "What are you doing later today?" Knowing how to respond naturally is equally important. If someone asks you a question, give a bit more than just a one-word answer. If asked, "How was your day?" instead of just "good," you could say, "It was pretty good, actually. I managed to finish that big report I was working on, so I'm feeling relieved." This asks for another question and keeps the conversation alive. And finally, knowing how to politely end a conversation is also a skill. You might say, "Oh, well, it was great catching up," or, "I should probably get going now, but it was lovely talking to you." Or, "I need to leave now, but let's meet again soon." These phrases show that you're about to leave but still value the talk. Let me share a quick story about Li Ming, a student from China who initially struggled with open questions. He was great at answering direct questions, but if someone asked, "So, What do you usually do in your free time? His mind would go blank because there were too many choices. He felt pressure to give a perfect, interesting answer. His language exchange partner, a kind English speaker named Sarah, noticed this. Sarah suggested that instead of trying to give a full, detailed answer right away, he should just pick one simple thing and say it. Then add a short follow-up sentence or question. So when Sarah asked him, "Any plans for the weekend?" Instead of getting confused, Li Ming simply said, "Yes, I think I will visit a museum." Then he quickly added, "Do you like museums?" This simple turning of the question back to Sarah made it less pressured. Sarah would then share her museum experiences, and Li Ming would listen and pick up new words, which he could then use in his next answer. He learned to say things like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. What kind of museum was it?" This back and forth made conversations less like an exam and more like a game of tennis, where both players keep the ball in the air. He realized that good conversations aren't just about how much you say, but how well you encourage the other person to talk, making the conversation a shared and enjoyable experience. The journey to speaking English easily, with confidence, and naturally. It's not a fast run, it's a long race, a beautiful, changing adventure. There will be days when you feel very motivated, when words come out easily, and then there will be days when it feels slow, when you stumble, when you wonder if you're getting better. This is completely normal. It's part of any deep learning. The key to long-term success, to truly reaching your speaking potential, is patience and always trying, and remembering your deeper why. Think of a majestic old tree. It doesn't grow tall and strong overnight, does it? It grows slowly, steadily, day by day, through sunshine and rain, through strong winds and quiet moments. Each tiny root it spreads, each new leaf it opens, is a step towards its towering size. Your English speaking ability is just like that tree. Every talk you have, every phrase you learn, every mistake you bravely make and learn from. These are the small forces, the quiet food that are building your fluency, connecting back to your why. On those hard days, when frustration whispers in your ear, take a moment to remember why you started this journey in the first place. Is it to travel the world and meet people from different cultures? Is it to do better in your job and work on international projects? Is it to enjoy movies and books without needing the words on the screen? Is it simply for the pure joy and personal satisfaction of learning a new skill? Hold that picture clearly in your mind. Let your why be your guide, your anchor, your strong reason to keep going. It's the fuel that will push you when the path feels steep. Celebrating milestones. Beyond just speaking easily. We've talked about celebrating small wins, but it's also super important to notice your bigger successes. Maybe you managed to have your first 15-minute talk completely in English, or you successfully handled a tricky situation with a native speaker, or you gave a presentation in English at work. These are huge achievements. Don't let them pass by without noticing. Give yourself credit. Share your success with a friend or family member who supports you. These big moments are proof, clear evidence, of how far you've come. They build real, lasting confidence. And finally, embrace the tough middle part. In any learning journey, there are often times when you feel like you're not getting better as fast as you'd like. This is the tough middle part, between being a beginner and being very good. It can be frustrating, but remember, even when you feel like you're not making clear progress, Your brain is still working. It's thinking, putting things together, learning deeply. Just keep showing up, keep practicing, keep listening. Even tiny steps during these times are still moving forward. Your commitment, your courage, and your steady effort are the true engines of your English-speaking success. It is not about perfect grammar every single time. It's about the connection, the communication, the pure bravery of using your voice to bring cultures together, to share ideas, to express your unique self. So, my dear English learners, as we finish this deep look into how to talk about daily life in English, I want to leave you with one final powerful thought. Talking about your daily life in English isn't just a language skill you learn. It's a life-changing journey, one that makes you more confident, opens up your world, and connects you to a truly global community. The words you speak, even if they're not perfect at first, are strong bridges, connecting you to new people, new ideas, and new chances. Remember the main message we've explored today. Be brave, not perfect. Let go of that fear of making mistakes, because every single error is a teacher, a stepping stone on your way to speaking easily. Change how you think to speaking easily over being perfectly correct. Prioritize keeping the conversation flowing, getting your message out, instead of making flawless sentences. Teach your brain to think directly in English. Skipping that slow translation step, become a keen phrase hunter, collecting and actively using those natural groups of words. Use the power of shadowing to copy native rhythm and how their voice goes up and down. And use active speaking by talking to yourself, recording your voice, and summarizing what you hear. And very importantly, actively look for and bravely try every single chance to speak that comes your way, big or small. You have already come so far. You understand this complex language. You can read it. You can probably write it. Now, it's time to truly use it, to make it sing through your voice. The journey might feel long at times. It will have its good days and its hard days. But I promise you, it is worth every single step, because with every word you bravely say, with every sentence you confidently form, you are building a brighter, more connected, and more open future for yourself. Thank you so very much for joining me today on Best English Podcast. I truly hope this incredibly detailed episode has given you the courage, the inspiration, and the real ways to learn that you need to unlock your speaking power. If you found this episode helpful, and I truly hope you did, please do me a huge favor and like this video. Your likes truly help our podcast reach more amazing learners just like you. Also, comment below with one new way to practice you're going to try this week, or a small speaking success you've recently had. I love reading them, and they inspire future episodes. And, of course, please subscribe to Best English Podcast so you don't miss any of our daily tips, lessons, and inspiring stories. Your support truly helps us grow and continue creating valuable content for the Best English Podcast community. Keep listening, keep learning, and most importantly, keep talking, because your voice, in English, is a beautiful thing that the world is waiting to hear. Until next time, happy speaking.